Well, welcome everybody. Here with Colleen. Hi, Colleen.
Hello.
Here with Danny.
Hi, everybody. Good to be here.
Hey, Danny. And we, of course, are always here live on Tuesday mornings. And we're here with a group of people. Again, if you watch on YouTube and you're watching this later, just so you know, we welcome all levels of experience here in this circle. I was just saying before we started the recording that even if you join from work, you can join just with your video and audio off. You're welcome to join live. And yeah, we welcome everybody. We keep it very casual. We keep it very easy to just come in and leave when you need to, and all of those kinds of things. So you're more than welcome to join us. You do need to sign up for the list on our website in order to receive the Zoom link. But again, we do try to keep it as easy and stress-free as possible. So we are glad to be here together today. And we have people from all over the world. So that's a really another neat thing about it. For those of you that are joining us live, we do have our Reiki, our live Q&A tomorrow, the podcast tomorrow. If you're signed up for the list, you'll get the link. And then in March, it's a little earlier than normal. So it is actually, is it March 5th? So it's very early in the month next month, due to some traveling. Colleen and I are going to Disneyland on March 6th, actually. So we're having some fun. And due to that and some teaching schedules and things like that, we needed to have it early in the month. So just a heads up on that. We also are teaching Animal Reiki 1 and 2, Animal Reiki Master in March. Those are both on weekends that month. So if you've been waiting for a weekend for one of the classes, then it's a good month to take it. You can go to Animal Reiki. There are some prerequisites for each one, but you can go to those classes and see what those are. And then also in April, we are Colleen's teaching Reiki 1 and 2, Reiki Master and Karuna Reiki Master. And then she's going to be teaching in person in May at the Omega Institute. She's teaching Animal Reiki 1 and 2 in person. So if you're anywhere near the Omega Institute, you can go to Omega to find that out. But also we do have it linked on our website as well. You do register through Omega. So
That's Rhinebeck, New York.
Rhinebeck, New York. Thank you. All right. Well, I think that's good for announcements. Of course, we always have more things happening and going on, but we try to keep the announcements somewhat short. So we are continuing this process of talking about our dreams in different categories that we have in our lives. So if you haven't been here or you haven't listened, you can definitely go catch up on the last few weeks where we have been exploring this concept and using Reiki energy to help explore this concept in different categories. So we've covered health and relationships and finances and just any dreams that you might have in general. Because it is one thing that really occurred to not just us, but also we've been really hearing in the kind of ethers about, well, what are they? You know, a lot of us have dreams when we are younger of the things that we want to have manifest within our lives. And then as we get older, maybe we're living our dreams and we come to that conclusion, regardless of, what category we might be exploring. And, or maybe we just need to actually spend some conscious and intentional times in exploring and discovering what those might be. Also, just asking Reiki energy to help with those insights with it as well. So we are continuing that process. I think we have one more week of this subject. And then, we have another subject coming up in March. So what we're talking about today is an area that I think that we have dreams or goals. Dreams might be a little bit different than goals. It's like one of those things that we have. It's a tangible aspect in our culture that we think about with our dreams quite a bit. Let me mute that 1 second. There we go. And that is in our job, career, business, whichever one we have. How do we manifest these dreams? That's another piece of it. Many of us that go through Reiki classes may have thought that we weren't going into them to have any sort of business, but somewhere along the lines, whether that's giving sessions or just being really passionate about Reiki, we want to start a Reiki business in some form or another, whatever that looks like to you. I know that Colleen has told her story about that she didn't go necessarily into Reiki to start a Reiki business. And we hear that story very commonly. Yeah, it's pretty common that just this energy taps us on the shoulder or awakens something within us that then it's like, okay, I actually want to do this professionally. For some of us, it is, we're in these ways, but we either love our job or career, or we just have our job and career in order to support our Reiki work, or we're just using this on a personal level. So there's all different ways that our job and our career kind of manifest for us. Our business might manifest for us. And, this could also be I want to give a caveat for some people that maybe here or listening later that maybe you're retired and this doesn't necessarily apply to you in the straightforward way that we think about it as a job or a business or a career. Um, but maybe there is, maybe it's a hobby in retired life, or maybe it's just finding that trail in retired life. Maybe you're very satisfied in your job or business or career, and you dreams might not be the right word. Maybe it's just being in contentment with it, or maybe it's filling up with additional life force and vitality and inspiration within something that you are already fulfilled in. So, all of those things can also be true. And as we always say with Reiki energy, just allow your guidance to be what it is with that. And it can be different than what we might be talking about, or where the guided journey that Colleen is going to be doing later takes you. Maybe those are the questions that you are asking around it. So I just wanted to say that. And as I was kind of listening around this topic, I'm like, it may not be completely applicable to everybody. But at the same time, you can still explore it just in the categories that are right for you within this topic. So for many of us, though, um, we do have dreams or goals or aspirations within these categories. Even if we are in a job that we like, we might, have different dreams around that. If we are in a business that we feel very content in, we might continue to have dreams around that. I know that's true for Colleen and myself. We love our work and are very passionate about it. But at the same time, we still do have dreams around what it looks like for us and in the business of Reiki lifestyle and Danny as well. So there's a lot of things that Reiki energy can do for us when we're talking about our job, our career, and our business. And I'm also like, it can be, I'm just going to not necessarily say all three of those. Just know that it applies to whatever category it falls in for you. So if I say business, it could be job or career or vice versa. So, the first thing is that if there is places that we want to go within this, there are things, there's healing that Reiki can do for us, right? It can let go of the things that we may need to let go of in order to manifest the things that we want. There can be, a lack of clarity. Maybe we are in something and we know that there's something more that we are wanting to manifest, and we don't know what that is. And so it can help with that lack of clarity. There can be a fear of failure or a fear of success. That one is always interesting because I think so many of us understand this idea of fear of failure. And then when we get into it, we're like, oh, I actually also, or instead of, have a fear of success in certain areas. We've talked about imposter syndrome in this circle before. But this is a really big one, especially in our businesses, or maybe you have dreams of getting a promotion or a certain job that you want. And Reiki really can help with this. And um, it, also it can be that uh, I just lost my train of thought, so I'm going to keep going. There can be financial constraints with it that, there's the realities of life that we might have dreams, and yet we still have to have a certain practicality around it. Maybe there's overwhelm, burnout, whether that's in your job or business, or maybe that's in your life. And sometimes when you are working on other things, or maybe there is overwhelm and burnout, it's hard to be in that creative space to see any sort of future. So there's that. There can be external expectations, culturally created self, comparison, right? That can be a place where we might have limiting beliefs, or maybe we are stuck in something. So that can be a really big place as well. Maybe who we thought we were isn't who we thought we were, and we are different people. I know I've very much experienced that. I had a certain idea of who I was and a culturally created self, and as soon as I got into that culturally created self, I was pretty unhappy with it and was like, oh, okay, that is not who I am. And so I had to take a different path. And what's interesting, I was really listening around this too and thinking about this, and sometimes how there can be those unanswered prayers that we can be so grateful for, maybe the job that we didn't get because it took us in a different path, or it gave us space to explore a different path, or maybe a job that we didn't take because of that same aspect. So there are those things sometimes that happen for us, as well, that can be a part of this process. And this is also another part of, what I'll talk about when we're talking about the Reiki energy, also bringing in with it. Other times we can have self-doubt or limiting beliefs, like I'm not good enough, I don't deserve success. It can be very subtle, can be very deep. There can be this lifetime issues with that, but there can also be past lifetime issues. And that's the thing with all of this, is that it can come in from this lifetime, past lifetimes, genetic or ancestral histories as well. Sometimes there is a lot of blessing in comfort zone, but sometimes we can also have a fear of it that creates us to be in kind of that stuck energy um, around this. Taking that first step, taking that first leap. What will other people think of us? What, as far as that societal pressure, when you see this one a lot in Reiki business, right? Because it can be really hard to post on social media. We hear about that acceptance from our family and friends. That can be really challenging, of being in these modalities. It's like we have that idea of how society has that idea of how we should, you know, have this kind of direct path, and leaving that comfort zone of like taking that leap can be really challenging, as well. We can have a lack of support, uncertainty about timing, job changes. Sometimes they're by choice, sometimes they're not. Also, there's external factors right now that maybe there are certain things that we would love to manifest with our dreams, but you hear of a lot of people that I've, been on second and third, and I've even had somebody that's been on their sixth interview and not, been able to get a job. So the job market out there right now is very strange. And so there are also um, external aspects that we can't necessarily control. And Reiki can also really help in that support with us. So, also, when it comes to our jobs, sometimes it's not a paid job, right? If you are a stay-at-home parent, or if you are a caregiver of some sort, that's a job as well. And so there's some of those things. First of all of these things can apply to that as well. But then there's that societal aspect that maybe doesn't recognize that as, the same thing as a job. And it's like the hardest job there is. And so there's those aspects. So sometimes if there's a transition in the household, maybe if kids are getting older, or maybe there's a change in partnership, whether that's through, like a loss, a death, or a divorce, or something like that, that can also really change those aspects of defining, your job and what that looks like for you. So those are a lot of places that Reiki can come in and help support with you, let go, release, heal old wounds, help with all of that. But the thing about Reiki energy is that what it can also do is it helps with that bringing in, right? Because if you think about just like when we're talking about just like the basic fundamental Reiki energy in, let's say, a stress reduction um, session. It's letting go of stress and it's bringing in life force and vitality. So it's a natural, fundamental aspect of the Reiki energy. You can also extrapolate that out into different areas of your life. So it helps on the emotional and mental levels. It helps on the physical levels. It helps on the spiritual levels, and it helps in our daily life. And some of these bigger topics, as well as some of the more minute, mundane topics when it comes to like our clarity around these things. Maybe we feel stuck in our job, but maybe we just have no idea what the next step looks like, or our business. Maybe we're at a certain level of our business and we just have no idea what that next step looks like because maybe we haven't had time to think about it. Or, like I said before, with that burnout aspect, maybe we're just kind of putting one foot, next to the other. And we need that space to be able to actually go into that dreaming quality. And maybe if we're at a certain age, like we don't even know what that looks like anymore. I think when we're young, again, this is an area that is very easy to dream about. And then as we go through life, or maybe we have been in a job or a business or a career for a long time, it's like, well, what does that even look like with it? And it doesn't mean that it's like this big change, or like, oh, you have to go out and ask for a promotion or anything else like that. It doesn't always look like that. Sometimes it does, but it doesn't always look like that. Sometimes it is just really about understanding what that next step is. And Reiki really brings in that clarity for us, those solutions, whether or not, it's the exact solution, or it's just an insight that helps bring us to another solution. Maybe it's a sign that helps to come in. Could be an oracle card that you draw. It could be a song that comes on. There's all of these signs that can come out of when we are actually in our Reiki work or Reiki journey that can also be a part of this process. But also, however, it is really beautiful process to have space to actually go into our dreams and explore these topics through Reiki energy. It, of course, does the healing work for fear and self doubt. Um, and at the same time, sometimes that's a process. That's the other thing about it, is like it's like the layers that you have to kind of take off, those blankets that you have to take off to really, you know, help us with that fear and self-doubt with it. It helps to empower us, helps to empower our authentic self, our authentic voice. So there's those aspects of it as well. And that can really help with our confidence with it. Trusting the divine timing, that can be a really challenging piece of it. Sometimes things work faster than what we're prepared for. And that can be a really good thing. But sometimes all of those possibilities can be overwhelming. right? Like that can be, I know that sounds kind of wild, but sometimes that is like, okay, I've got all these possibilities. What do I do with it? Like, how do I have one? And then other times, um, it's like the feeling of lack of possibilities, or maybe there's, like I said, a real life aspects of, the stability of income and things like that that make those things feel out of reach for at least that a certain time frame. So there is those aspects, and then at the same time sometimes there really is divine timing with it. How can we trust the things that are working out or the things that don't work out, and know that in the long run we really are on our path in this life and what that looks like. Other times we have to have it help us understand what our passion and our purpose is. Our purpose isn't always our job. So that's the other thing to know. It's like our life's purpose, our soul's purpose in this culture has so gotten intertwined with our job. And for some people that's true. Some people that is, they know what their life's purpose is. This is my purpose. I have a really good friend that it's like that has been her purpose for her whole, like, kind of whole life essentially, and she's very fulfilled in her career because of that. For other people, a job is just a job, and it's they're supporting our passions outside of our job and our purpose outside of our job. This is one thing that we do in Next Step, and level one of Next Step is that we explore our soul's purpose and what that means outside of our job, and when that intertwines, great. But in this culture, it has gotten a little too intertwined, in my opinion, and that we can look at ourselves differently, that our job doesn't necessarily define who we are. And that was, I think, a big journey that many of us go through. I know that was a big journey for me, of like that my job, even this job, even a job that I'm super, super passionate about and absolutely love every single day. And I've been in other jobs where it was the exact opposite. I realized in that time frame of like, oh, this doesn't define who I am. And in this job, it's a little bit different, but at the same time, I'm also a multifaceted person, as we all are. And that in this, that I have passions outside of work and purpose outside of work, and that's okay too. So finding that joy, and Reiki helps us to maybe know what our joy is, helps us to maybe understand our passions, be settled and grounded in the fact that maybe we have a job and that's what we're doing, but that we have a passion outside of just our job, and that it may not define who we are. It helps us to set our clear intentions. So, this is one of the things too that in like the Reiki 1 and 2 manual, the healing touch, the purple one that many of you may have used through, like if you're through ICRT, whether that's Usui Tibetan or Usui Holy Fire. There's like goal setting exercises, right, that you can use Reiki for to support that. So one of those is setting intentions on like a note card, or piece of paper, setting goals and intentions and sending Reiki to that every single day. And so you can write 3 to 5 of them down. Maybe it's just one, however that looks for you. And then you are sending Reiki to that every day. So a lot of people can put that on their Reiki grids, right? Where you're sending continuous Reiki to it, or you're putting a crystal over it or something like that, that's sending uh, a continuous Reiki to obtaining those goals. Because it's also, Reiki can be really practical in that. And if we're sending, especially like the mental emotional symbol, that can be one that can let go of the things that we've already talked about and really bring in the things that you need to accomplish those goals. So that's another really practical aspect that Reiki can help you do, is to find those intentions and then help you to manifest it, because it also, as it's removing those blocks, as it's removing all of those things, it's also making space for new, right? So it's making space for the things that you want to bring in for your life. So you're letting go, you're making space to bring in. And so it can help you to take that action as well with that confidence. But sometimes you're just saying yes, and you're not even sure why or what you're doing, or you're just following a path that you know is right in some way, and it's leading you to a place that you may not necessarily know where the outcome is. Other times you may know, but you hear about this a lot as well. I know in my own experience, this is true. Sometimes I just say yes. Now, when I get that feeling, I know, okay, if I just say yes, it's leading me to a good place. But other times I've just said yes, and I've seen that it's led me to a good place. And so it can help you with that. And that is kind of your intuition, um, you know, speaking for you. And Reiki helps with that development with it. Also, creating an abundant and grateful mindset. I think that abundant mindset, as opposed to like a scarcity mindset, can be really helpful in these. Also, I think gratitude kind of comes into play here. That when we are shifting our focus into the abundant mindset, the grateful mindset, it can shift how we feel in our daily life, which in turn can also help us to maybe have more confidence, maybe help us with our inspiration, help us to really finally step into our power, our fully empowered self, which then helps us to take inspired action. So that's another place that Reiki can really help, is that kind of prosperity thinking, that prosperity mindset. We also have a great community within the Reiki community. We're here supporting each other, even if it's a job or a career or a Reiki business. I think that there is a really helpful community here within Reiki. We can talk about the things that we want to talk about. We can talk about abundance mindset. We can talk about all of these things, this letting go of past life issues that are creating blocks in this lifetime that might be holding us back from who we truly want to be in this area as well as other areas. And so, that's another place too that is super, super helpful. In the chat, if you're here live, if you're listening later in the chat, we have please send Reiki to A, B, and C, or myself, or all of these things where we're here sending Reiki to each other and being in this supportive community. Also, it helps with inspiration, worthiness, confidence, life force, and vitality. I know after I get out of a Reiki session, some of them can be really hard, and I have a lot of processing to do because it's one of those sessions that's very going into deep healing work. And then there's other sessions that I come out of, and I'm just like, I feel great, and like I'm just inspired to do all the things. And so that's a really big piece of how Reiki can help us as well. Also, some of these conversations, I've talked about this already with when we had our podcast with Marie Diamond, and I came out of it, and she's a Reiki master too, and we do invocations before all of our podcasts that you don't hear because we do them before the recordings. And so we know that those conversations are held within the Reiki energy. And I was like, I'm going to clean all the things. So I just like cleaned, most of my office, got some things organized. And so those are the other places that Reiki energy and this work can really help us with, is that it helps us with that inspiration, and it can help us with our worthiness. Like that's another place that Reiki energy like helps us so much, is with that worthiness. And also the trusting of the process, which sometimes are easier said than done, and sometimes in our life are easier um, to see than others. We can be in hard cycles, we can be in easy cycles, and that trusting of the process sometimes, I definitely don't want to bypass the hard cycles that we can be in. And then also at the same time, there can be that trust with our path and what that looks like for us, even in the challenging times. So, how we can accomplish this through Reiki energy is setting our intentions, asking for the insights, self Reiki, Reiki from other people, a Reiki session. And of course, not just in Reiki, like we have a lot of other modalities that we can do this work through, even just journaling, taking some time to ground, taking some time to be in a present moment, in a present state, and listening to ourselves and listening to mind, body, spirit, universe, However, you think about that is another way. And then, of course, in times like this where we will be going into a guided journey or a guided meditation, can sometimes help quiet that outside noise so that we can really hear ourselves within it and hear the spirit guides, hear spirit, hear the resources that are outside of just ourselves that are, here to try to support us in this lifetime. So yeah, Colleen, I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
Well, it was really interesting when you were talking about the the job, and it all of a sudden it kind of all just these again insights came in of the different ways we define our job. And I was thinking about my mother-in-law, who's now 93, and my father-in-law will be 97 in a couple months. And when they moved into, and well, it really started before the pandemic or right about the pandemic. Um, but watching her, she has been absolutely devoted to taking care of him her entire life. That was her job. And when she moved, watching, particularly at that age, the change in her job, and then when they moved into independent living, where she no longer even had to think about cooking, and then changing driving and things like that, like a total change in her job and a loss of a job. And then I was thinking of my mother going through the same thing. She found other jobs to keep her busy with volunteering and fundraising for things that she was volunteering with. But we were talking about that yesterday because she was always a super ambitious woman and always had a new idea, new possibility, new thing she was going to do. And then thinking of my husband who retired a year ago and the change in his job and him still trying to figure out what is that, like what is that now. And so then it led me to my own life. In I've always been self-employed and looking at some of those. I'm talking about transition times, like when our job transitions, and in my business the different times, because I've always been self-employed, going through the change within my businesses and the change of a job in all of those realms and how they've transitioned one through another, how much easier it is once I had Reiki to figure out those transitions as they happened. But it made me just really think about, in addition, as Robin, as you were talking about, how we define our job, identify ourselves with that, and what that actually means to each person. Because for each of you, it is unique, and it is unique for you to, think about that. I know many people whose job it is to notice beauty. That's their job. Like, just notice it in the world. And it's bigger than that, of course, because people have to live their lives. But I know people whose, job it is to, like, they just were born here and their job was just to be born here. And then the more I hear from other esoteric teachings and metaphysical teachings, that's really, we all just came here to have this experience and to recognize how much love we have within us, and that is ultimately what we are here to find and what Reiki takes us into. So anyway, I can feel myself trailing into all other thoughts. So I want to make sure the journey is fairly long this time. So I want to make sure we have time for that.
Right. Well,
So,
thank you so much, everybody. You can stay. We're just going to move into the journey. So I wanted to say for everybody that's on the recording. So